Kenneth Walsh's life looked perfect. 45 years old, cardiologist at Massachusetts General, $870,000 a year coming into the house. A 5-bedroom home in Newton with a pool, a BMW in the driveway, and a Mercedes beside it. 2 kids in private school. A country club membership. Europe twice a year. From the outside, and Kenneth had spent 20 years curating the outside, there was nothing missing. Nothing at all. And then, on an ordinary Tuesday in October, he was threading a catheter through a man's coronary artery when his hand began to tremble. Not violently, not enough for the patient to notice, just enough. Just enough for Kenneth to know. He finished the procedure, he scrubbed out, he walked through the corridor of the hospital he had given his life to, pushed through the heavy door to the parking structure, got into the BMW, and sat down. He did not start the engine. He just sat there, staring at his hand resting on the steering wheel. Perfectly still now, as if nothing had happened, as if it hadn't just ended everything. He started doing what doctors do. He started running the numbers. Not the diagnosis, that could wait, that had a name and a medication and a timeline he wasn't ready to say out loud yet. The other numbers, the ones that were supposed to prove he was fine. Mortgage, $7,200 a month. Property taxes, $2,000. Insurance, pool service, lawn service, another $1,100. Country club dues, $1,500 a month when you broke it down. Private school for 2 kids, $5,000 a month. Car payments, both cars, $1,800. The restaurants, the cleaning service, the Europe trips that cost $15,000 each and happened twice a year. He didn't write any of it down. He just held it in his head, the way he held a patient's anatomy in his head during a procedure. Every structure in its place, every number precise. The total came to $32,000 a month, just to stay still, just to keep the life exactly as it was. And then he thought about what happened if he stopped working. Not retired, just stopped. The cash savings, $180,000, 6 months, maybe 7 if Ellen cut back. After that, the mortgage, the cars, the club, the schools, all of it would start to come apart. He had earned over $500,000 a year for nearly 2 decades, and he had 6 months of runway. He drove home. The BMW moved through Newton the way it always did, quietly, effortlessly. The kind of car that makes the world feel like it's arranged for you. He pulled into the driveway and sat for a moment looking at the house. 5 bedrooms. He and Ellen used 1. The kids used 2. The other 2 were guest rooms that had hosted guests perhaps 4 times in 3 years. The pool in the backyard caught the last of the October light. They had used it 8 days this past summer. He went inside. Ellen was on a call in her office. The 3rd bedroom converted, the door half open, her voice precise and controlled the way it always was when she was billing hours. He thought about Priya, Dr. Priya Sharma. They had started residency together at Mass General. Same year, same drive, same absolute certainty that they were going to be wealthy. And they both were. By 45, they had both achieved what their 26-year-old selves had wanted. He remembered a hospital reunion, maybe 8 years ago. Priya had mentioned, casually, that she still lived in her triple-decker in Somerville. He remembered the way he'd said it, the tone he'd used. Doesn't that feel a little beneath where we should be? He had meant it as concern. He had not meant it as concern. She had smiled and asked him what his housing cost was. He had done the math. $10,300 a month. And she had told him hers was $1,100 because her tenants covered the rest. And then she had said something he had changed the subject to avoid. She had said, "Over 10 years, that's $1.1 million. What would happen if you invested that difference instead?" He had changed the subject. He had not wanted to do that math. He was doing it now, in the dark, in his coat, looking at a pool he used 8 days a year. He was doing all the math he had refused to do for 20 years. He called her that evening. They hadn't spoken in over a year. She answered on the 2nd ring. He told her about the tremor. He told her about the diagnosis. Early onset Parkinson's. Manageable for now, but his career doing delicate cardiac procedures had an expiration date, measured in years, not decades. And then he told her the part that was harder to say than the diagnosis. He told her about the $32,000 a month, the $180,000 in savings, the mortgage with over $1 million still on it, car loans, credit card balances that they promised themselves they'd pay off, and a lifestyle that required $32,000 monthly just to maintain. If Kenneth stopped working due to burnout, injury, illness, their financial house of cards would collapse within months. He said it the way you say something you have known for a long time, but have never let yourself hear in your own voice. There was a silence on the line, not an uncomfortable one, the kind of silence that means someone is choosing their words carefully, because they respect you enough not to waste them.
You don't have wealth, Kenneth. You have income. That's not the same thing.
He didn't argue. He didn't change the subject.
I know. I need your help. I need to understand how you did it.
She said, "You don't have wealth. You have income." And he didn't argue. What does Priya have that Kenneth doesn't? And how far apart are they really? They met the next morning, not at the kind of place Kenneth usually went. Not the espresso bar near Mass General, where a coffee cost $7 and the tables were full of people performing busyness. A diner in Somerville that Priya knew, $2 cups, Formica countertops, a waitress who called everyone Hun. Priya arrived in a used Honda Accord. Not new, not leased, just a car that moved her from one place to another, without demanding anything from her. She laid it out simply. The triple-decker in Somerville, mortgage paid off entirely, rental income, $4,800 a month, all of it now profit. A duplex she'd bought in Worcester in 2018. Not glamorous, not the kind of address you mentioned at dinner parties. Generating another $1,600 a month. Investment accounts, $2.1 million, producing dividends. Total passive income, over $6,000 a month. Total monthly expenses, $4,800. Her passive income exceeded her expenses. She could stop working tomorrow. Not retire into poverty. Stop working and be fine. Completely, structurally fine. Kenneth listened to all of this and thought about the country club he belonged to, where he knew everyone and liked almost no one. He thought about the Europe trips photographed for social media, consumed without tasting. He thought about the pool.
I pitied you. For years, I actually pitied you.
I know. I noticed.
Priya pulled a paper napkin from the dispenser on the table and began sketching. A simple diagram, boxes and arrows, the kind of thing you draw when you want someone to see structure rather than just hear numbers. Kenneth watches her draw. He does not look at his phone. He does not check the time. He watches her hand move across the napkin with the focused attention he usually reserves for a patient's imaging. When she finishes, she slides the napkin across the table to him. He picks it up with both hands. The hardest conversation was not with Priya. The hardest conversation was with Ellen. He came home that evening, and she was at the kitchen island with her laptop open, still in her work clothes, a glass of wine poured and barely touched. He sat down across from her. He told her about the diagnosis first. He owed her that. He had been carrying it alone for 2 days, and that was already too long. She closed the laptop. She looked at him the way she had looked at him when they were 26, and just starting, and everything was still possible, and nothing had been decided yet. He told her the rest, the $32,000 a month, the 6 months of runway, the cage they had built together, room by room, car by car, membership by membership, each decision reasonable in isolation, catastrophic in aggregate.
We worked for this.
We worked for it. We're still working for it. We will always be working for it unless we stop.
The silence between them was the longest of their marriage. Then Ellen reached across the island and picked up the napkin from the diner. He had brought it home without realizing he was going to. She smoothed it flat on the granite countertop with her palm. She studied it.
Show me the numbers.
The 2 years that followed were not easy. They sold the Newton house, $400,000 in equity, extracted from the cage, and redirected. They bought a condo in Cambridge, still good, still theirs, but costing $3,200 a month instead of $10,300. They sold the BMW and the Mercedes and bought used Toyotas. They pulled the kids from private school. That one took months to stop hurting, the arguments cycling back through the house like weather, and enrolled them in Cambridge public schools, which were, as it turned out, excellent. They took the $8,000 a month they had freed up and they bought a duplex in Lowell and a fourplex in Springfield. Nothing glamorous, everything cash flow positive. The kind of properties Kenneth had once driven past without seeing. And then one evening in November, 3 years after he had sat in the parking structure of Mass General, staring at his left hand, Kenneth opened a spreadsheet on his laptop at the kitchen table of the Cambridge condo. The rental properties and the investment portfolio now generated $9,400 a month. Their expenses ran $6,800. The passive income exceeded the expenses. He still worked. He consulted, he taught, he shared what 20 years of cardiology had built in him. But he did not have to. For the first time in his adult life, his continuation was a choice, not a requirement. He closed the laptop. He sat in the quiet of the condo. No pool to maintain, no club dues, no performance running in the background. And he felt something he did not immediately recognize. It took him a moment to name it. It was the absence of the cage. He puts his left hand flat against the glass. It is still. Not performing stillness, just still. He ran into one of his old country club acquaintances at a coffee shop in Harvard Square. New Porsche outside. The man was talking about his property taxes, his pool maintenance, his children's private school tuition, the familiar liturgy of expensive obligations, recited as evidence of success.
How do you do it? Now that you've had to cut back, doesn't it feel like failure?
Kenneth thought about the duplex in Lowell, quietly generating income while he slept. About the condo, perfectly sized for the life he actually lived, rather than the life he had been performing. About the mornings he walked to the coffee shop because he wanted to, not because he had 40 minutes between procedures. About his left hand, which trembled sometimes now. More than before, less than it would, and which had, in its one moment of betrayal in that catheterization lab, given him the only thing 20 years of earning had not, the truth.
It feels like waking up.
He walked home, 15 minutes on foot through a neighborhood he had started to actually know. He had spent 20 years earning money to spend on things that cost him his freedom. He was spending however long he had left doing the opposite. The cage had become a door. He had walked through it, and the only thing he had given up was the performance of a life he had never, not once, actually lived.